Welcome. I've been asked to give a presentation about guardianship in Europe. I understand that that this is a presentation mostly looked at by professionals and social workers in the field of counter-human trafficking. And guardianship is not in every country a very familiar concept. So. My name is Murk. I'm working at Nidos, which is the guardianship organization, national guardianship organization in the Netherlands, and Nidos is the front runner of a European network on guardianship institutions. What I will do is tell a little bit about guardianship in general, about what guardianship could mean in the fight against child trafficking, and what it might mean in any system actually where social workers take care of victims of human trafficking or minor asylum seekers. So I'll just hit it off here, and I hope you will enjoy this presentation. First of all, I will tell you a little bit about Nidos. Nidos is a guardianship organization in the Netherlands responsible for as a guardian for any unaccompanied minor that comes to the Netherlands. Unaccompanied minors are young asylum seekers coming from all over the world, and for sure out of the European Union, from outside to any European country. And when such an asylum seeker would come to the Netherlands, that means guardianship is attributed to Nidos as a national guardianship institution, which means that the court gives the responsibility to the minor like any other parental responsibility to Nidos as an organization. That is actually what guardianship means in a very broad perspective. In practice, as you will find out during the presentation, it can mean very, very different things, and it can work out differently, for better and sometimes for a little bit better. And generally, it is a plus to have a guardian as an unaccompanied minor or any other a child without parents. What does a guardian do? A guardian is legally responsible for a minor. Most countries do have such a thing for, at least for native young people who are without parents, orphans, or children from which the parents have gone missing. But when parents are not found, and we're talking about a foreign minor, then a guardian is responsible for everything concerning the minor as a legal responsible. So education, health, healthcare, schooling, but also in this case asylum procedures. When you talk about victims to trafficking, this goes even further into special care, special reception, asylum procedures, possible procedures concerning the trafficking or the protection against traffickers. And that is exactly where the added value of a guardian is. Guardian is one attributed person who is responsible for making the big choices in life for any minor. In terms of child trafficking, that means that the guardian is in charge of the protection and of the choice for reception, for a lawyer, for a legal procedure. Let's go on. What types of guardianship do you have in Europe? Guardianship is a common term, but it means very, very different things in different countries. Not all European countries do have a guardian present, a guardianship system. Guardians can have different backgrounds. They can be voluntary or professional. Or I gave the example of a Dutch guardian, meaning a guardian is in the Dutch context trained social worker with guardianship responsibilities, working for a national organization to present the differences. You can have a guardian in Belgium, which is either a voluntary guardian, which can be any lawyer or can be someone who is retired, can be anyone who is of good behavior, or it can be a professional guardian, for example, working for the Red Cross. In Sweden, any guardian is voluntary, but there's quite some training and direction given to these guardians. In Finland, voluntary guardians exist, but they are less trained and less directed. For example, in Poland, it can be a law student who is attributed a guardian, which means in summer holidays there is no guardian present. In Italy, there are some guardians, but most of the children in Italy don't get a guardian appointed due to circumstances as well as organization. In the UK, there is no guardian at all. The social worker takes care on the decentralized level in the municipality. So what does this mean? Is there an added value if you look at the systems that do have a guardian and systems that do not have a guardian? And what does this mean for child victims of trafficking? Well, the guardian and the social worker. Why, if you have a social worker, do you want to have a guardian at all? A social worker, generally, we can take the case of the United Kingdom. A social worker is responsible on the municipality level for a child without parents, and as such responsible for the asylum case, the asylum procedure, and responsible for anything going on in the life of this minor. So legal representation or education, health, anything. A guardian, in this case, is not attributed. So the social worker is the organizer of the life of the minor, as well as the responsible for its choices and development. In case that you do have a social worker and a guardian, let's take Sweden, for example, the social worker is responsible for its daily life, and the guardian is responsible for the choices and the development of the minor and the legal responsibilities. Meaning that if a social worker has too many cases or no specialization, there is a guardian who checks upon the social worker and is able to replace the minor if this is necessary. The guardian should be in place to have control about the asylum procedure, whereas a social worker in, for example, a UK municipality is generally not a specialist in asylum procedures and is not well placed to do this. Many people say, well, any unaccompanied minor or victim of child trafficking does have a lawyer. Why do you need a guardian? A guardian is making the connection. It's like a case manager with legal responsibility for the child. If you have a lawyer and a social worker, the social worker must be very on top of and specialized of the matters to be able to check on the work of the lawyer, to check whether the lawyer makes the choices in the best interest of this child. A lawyer is generally not a youth specialist, so it is a different role. Finally, the guardian and the government. Why the social worker is in principle part of the government. The guardian should not be part of the government and is working outside of the government. The guardian is, as such, checking up on the government and its responsibilities. If reception falls short, if daily care falls short, there should be someone able to attribute the matter to to the right responsible persons, and a guardian should be in that place. A social worker, being a part of daily care and reception, is not in the place to question that daily care and reception. So for check and a balance in the system, guardian is should not be missed, especially if you talk about victims of child trafficking, because in that case the group is extra vulnerable, and generally choices and processes are much more complicated. A choice to choose for an asylum procedure, or on the other hand to choose for prosecution of possible human traffickers, is a choice that can be far-fetched and that has to be weighed against the best interest of this specific child. Several years ago, Nidos, as a guardianship organization, started to work in a European way. A European directive and European regulation is developing, and is developing very fast in the fields of asylum, migration, and human trafficking. Why did we want to work in a European way? As a national guardianship organization, Nidos does have a responsibility for all unaccompanied minors in the territory of the Netherlands. So what's the threat by just going national? There is much policy competition within Europe. So the one with the lowest standards is very scared. Certain countries very scared to attract more minor asylum seekers or even victims of trafficking. So the possibility to direct policy just to the best interests of a certain child is limited in a political way. There are many unwanted effects of policy changes. So, and that's mainly on a national level. If you have Sweden changing its policy towards a certain nationality, you can have a big increase of this nationality entering the state of Finland within a couple of months. The target groups generally, and human smugglers as well, generally know very well what is happening in the member states and what is going on. In the Netherlands, there has been a huge smuggling years ago of mainly Nigerian girls, and when the authorities started to be on top of that and taking girls in, taking them to a semi-closed reception, starting an investigation with intelligence and police, the smugglers were on top of that quite fast. There has been a huge investigation. There have been arrests, but in a year from that, or 2 years, this Nigerian girls were not coming to the Netherlands anymore. But if you look at the rates in the same period, especially in Belgium, the rates have gone up. So generally, you can change policy, but the only way forward is a common and European way in this sense to fight human trafficking. In that sense, there's a very practical need for a guardian, because and a guardian, especially like there is in the Netherlands, a guardian that has the possibility to work as a national organization. Trends can be seen if you have a national guardian. A guardian is generally a person of trust, is close to the minor, and will see if from a certain nationality or gender-based, or if there's any other trend in possible human smuggling. A guardianship organization could signal this. Border police could signal this, but that depends. They will not see a certain target group over time, so they will see them at the border. If there's If signals are hard to be found, then you will want to see this group for a longer time. If there is a decentralized system and a social worker in a municipality working with this target group, this social worker is not part of a larger national organization, will not be able to see whether social workers in many other municipalities have seen the same signals with the same target group. So a guardian, and especially a guardianship organization, has a very big added value in signaling trafficking and fighting trafficking. Apologies. From the start, Nidos started to build guardianship in Europe with the aim of expanding this into European regulation and have professional or semi-professional guardianship in as many countries as possible within the European Union. This also makes it possible to transfer from one state in the European Union to the other and handing over care and responsibility from one state to the other if this is necessary. Organizations working together in the European network of guardianship organizations share a basic view on guardianship. This means professionalism. Professional guardianship is in essence preferred. Voluntary guardianship should be professionalized as far as possible. And there are differences in national contexts and there are differences in background. A social worker in one country has much more specialism and knowledge than a social worker in another country, which means that the guardian might have a different, slightly different role. But generally, the guardian should be in place and as well trained as possible to make the choices in the best interest of the child. This means also a guardian should have backup and should be part of a bigger whole. It can be a network or a platform, it can be a professional organization, but if minors or victims of trafficking have to return after a certain procedure to their country of origin, it is imperative that a guardian has access to a larger network to be able to guide in this process. A guardian as well as a social worker, basically, because social workers might encounter this problem as well in different countries. And they often do not have the access to national or international networks that can help with information, with the guidance that is needed for a good process of, for example, return or Dublin case. NG now works as a network which is purely project-based, so organizations, guardianship organizations, or organizations that are willing to go deeper into guardianship and might be able to develop it over time, are working on a project basis on different themes like increasing unaccompanied minors and victims of child trafficking into family reception, or like developing support for guardians over Europe on Dublin cases and return. This can be done by a back office. In this case, it's a different project, and there are organizations coming in and saying, okay, I can use the support, and there are organizations that can offer the support. In that case, it is the Guardianship Institutions project is based upon needs, demands, and offering of services that can be used by other parties. To go on, of course we have a wish list. I named several things from the wish list already, but the longer term perspective is that we want to have guardianship or representation as professional as possible in as many member states in the European Union as possible, and preferably even in European directives and law. A definition of guardianship might provide in this. It's a long way from there. In the next 5 years, something like this will not happen. But especially if we're talking about child trafficking, which is a theme that triggers most of this audience. It is very there's a big opportunity in this, because guardianship is not always accepted as a general rule for a whole target group of asylum-seeking young people. However, victims of child trafficking are more vulnerable and are generally a group that is not too large in any given country. So you're talking about maybe 100 signaled victims of child trafficking that do not come from the European Union. Or much lower, it can be 10, 20 to maximum 100 at the same time. If you're looking at this group of 10 to 20 to 100, it is achievable to put in place a guardianship system for this group without making big national reforms. So in this presentation, this is to the point where I'm heading to. I would hope that in countries where systems do not exist in the sense that a guardian is generally present, I would like to call upon people to propose such a system, if possible, to call upon the government to create such a system specifically for this very small target group. You can see it as a pilot project, developing guardianship on a small scale, and perhaps later on, if a system does work and does operate in a positive way, it can be expanded to the full target group. At the same time, NG will try to support these kind of processes. So if there are initiatives on a small scale in different countries, we will hope to be able to put our knowledge on a guardianship methodology, on guardianship training, on exchanges, on information on general policy to and networks in countries of origin to these guardians that will be starting. So hopefully we can find a two-way street, and there are some of you in this audience that will take up the challenge to bring guardianship on a small scale forward and have it more broadly accepted. And hopefully in the future we can help each other with this. As an example of how we work together, we have developed a training program, general methodology from social skills work, from social work, and from guardianship, general methodology that is in place in the Netherlands, in Sweden, in Belgium. We have combined this to offer to a broader field. As an example of for child trafficking, this is signals of trafficking and indicators in different countries that are developed, that can be exchanged, and there can be training in place in different countries on how this is done in another country and how this is done by a guardian. What can we do at this moment, which is mainly, I mentioned some of it, we can professionalize where possible. So where there is an opportunity in any given country, we can start up professionalization, make every bit of knowledge available in other countries, and develop networks in which it is possible to work from responsibility to responsibility. If a minor is not legally represented by any guardian in one country, it is hard to come from another country to that country and have permanently someone available. So that is mainly the part of parental responsibility, which is generally not the case. I put this slide in mainly to point your attention to anyone interested in the long run to www.ng.eu, which is a platform on which any guardianship organization or individual guardian or organization that might want to develop guardianship can contact other members of guardianship institution all over Europe. What already can be offered, I talked about most of this in the past slides already. You can always contact myself at a later stage if you have any questions about guardianship in Europe, if I can help you with anything, or if Nidos can help you with anything. If you're looking for counterparts in other parts of the European Union, we could help you with this. And if you are just professionally interested and want to talk a little bit more about what guardianship could mean in your system, or if you're looking at publications or reports about the subject and what it could mean for the fight against child trafficking, I would be very honored to talk to you further on the telephone, on Skype, or over email. Thank you very much if you have listened to this presentation, and I hope I will meet some of you in person later on. Thank you.